One afternoon, Liam, a local man known for his outspoken political opinions, spots Emily in her front yard, proudly displaying a series of MAGA signs. Feeling a surge of indignation, he immediately reports her to the authorities, convinced her actions pose a serious threat. The very next day, Emily's world begins to unravel as the authorities spring into action, while Liam watches with a sense of satisfaction as his report is taken seriously. What Liam doesn't anticipate, however, is that his decision to report her will lead to consequences far beyond what he ever imagined. As events unfold, Liam is forced to confront the true impact of his actions and the unforeseen ripple effect they cause. Will he come to regret his decision, or will he learn something far more profound than he expected? Before we dive into the full story, drop a comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from. Liam was never one to hold back his opinions. He had always been vocal about his views, particularly when it came to politics. He took great pride in being informed and never missed an opportunity to share his perspective. On this particular day, he was making his way home from the coffee shop, sipping on his iced latte, when something caught his eye that set him off. There, in the front yard of a house a few doors down, Emily, a woman he knew only slightly from the neighborhood, stood with a broad smile. Her yard was adorned with several MAGA signs, each one boldly displaying a slogan that made Liam's blood run cold. He was well aware of the political tensions in their town, where opinions often clashed violently, but seeing Emily openly show support for a movement he found deeply troubling pushed him past his limit. Liam stopped dead in his tracks, staring at the signs with disgust. His mind raced with anger. How could she? How could someone in their peaceful neighborhood support such a controversial and, in his view, dangerous movement? He thought about the potential impact of her actions and how it could influence others in the community. He could already hear the whispers in town about how this kind of political stance was divisive, how it was a threat to the unity they had tried to build. Without hesitation, Liam pulled out his phone, dialing the local authorities. Hello. Yes, I'd like to report something. There's a woman in my neighborhood displaying MAGA signs on her lawn. It's inappropriate, and frankly, it could be seen as inciting division. I think something should be done about it. He hung up the phone, feeling a rush of satisfaction. The authorities would handle it. He had done the right thing. He was standing up for the community, for unity. The discomfort in his stomach was quickly dismissed. This was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, Emily remained unaware of the storm that was about to unfold in her life. As she watered her plants, the smile on her face never faltered. She was simply expressing her political beliefs, something she felt strongly about, especially in such turbulent times. To her, the signs were symbols of hope and change. She wasn't causing harm. She was just showing where she stood. But things were about to change quickly. The next morning, the phone rang in Emily's kitchen just as the sun was rising. She had just finished making herself a cup of coffee and was about to sit down with her favorite book when the call came through. The voice on the other end was formal, almost too official for such an early hour. Good morning. Is this Emily Mitchell? The voice asked. Yes, this is she, Emily responded, her voice still thick with sleep. This is Officer Davis with the local police department. We've received a report regarding your display of political signs on your property. We need you to come down to the station to discuss it further. Emily blinked in confusion. What? I don't understand. What's wrong with the signs? I'm just expressing my views. Ma'am, we're just following up on the report. Please come to the station today. We'll explain everything when you arrive. Her stomach churned. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Was it illegal to express her opinion now? She'd heard whispers about political tensions, but this felt like something out of a bad dream. After the call ended, Emily sat in stunned silence. Her thoughts were a jumble of questions. What had she done wrong? Who had reported her? She felt a wave of unease wash over her as she stared at the MAGA signs through her window. They had been up for weeks. Why now? What had changed? Liam, on the other hand, was feeling a rush of vindication. When he saw a squad car pulling up in front of Emily's house later that morning, his heart swelled with a sense of accomplishment. He was right, he thought. He had done what any good citizen would do, stand up for the greater good, for unity. This was his town, and no one should be allowed to spread division, not under his watch. As the officers walked up Emily's driveway, he couldn't help but watch from across the street. The feeling of righteousness, of doing the right thing, lingered in the pit of his stomach, pushing him to watch more. He saw the officers knock on Emily's door, and when it opened, he could see her expression falter. The officers exchanged a few words with her before Emily turned pale. She stepped outside, and the officers began to explain the situation in a calm yet firm manner. But what Liam didn't know, what he couldn't see, was that Emily was already thinking ahead. She had never been one to back down when it came to her rights. She knew this wasn't just about the signs. It was about silencing her, about making her feel like she didn't belong in the community. The realization hit her like a wave. This wasn't just about political beliefs. It was about power and control. And it terrified her. As Emily walked out the door to meet the officers, she felt a pang of regret, though not for putting the signs up. No, she regretted that she had underestimated the power of a divided society, and worse, she had underestimated how far some would go to make sure those they disagreed with were punished. Emily went down to the station as instructed, still in shock, but there was no turning back. As she entered the cold, sterile room, she found herself sitting across from Officer Davis and another officer, neither of whom gave her a warm reception. It wasn't long before the interrogation began. "Ma'am, you're aware that your actions can have consequences, correct?" Officer Davis began, his tone unyielding. "All I did was put up some signs," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's nothing illegal about expressing my beliefs, is there?" The officer leaned forward. "It's not the signs themselves, it's the message they send. You're aware of how controversial this movement is, right? It can create tension, stir up emotions in the community. We've had multiple complaints about your signs." Emily felt a pang of frustration. Who were these people to tell her what she could and couldn't express? She had the right to speak out, to voice her opinions, no matter how unpopular they might be. But as the officers continued to press her, a growing sense of dread settled in. It was clear that they weren't just questioning her, they were trying to intimidate her, to make her feel like she had done something wrong. Meanwhile, Liam, feeling more righteous than ever, couldn't help but watch from his window as Emily returned home later that afternoon, her face pale and her posture defeated. He didn't see the fear in her eyes. He didn't see the quiet resolve that burned within her. He saw only the consequences of his actions. Little did Liam know, the seeds of doubt had already been sown in Emily's heart. This was more than just a misunderstanding. It was an attack on her right to be heard, and she wasn't about to let it slide. The weeks that followed Liam's report were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations for both him and Emily. The initial satisfaction Liam felt had long since faded, replaced by an unsettling sense of unease that he couldn't quite place. Meanwhile, Emily found herself thrust into the spotlight. Her quiet expressions of political belief, now the subject of town meetings and heated debates. One crisp Saturday morning, the community center hosted a town hall meeting aimed at addressing the growing tensions that had surfaced since Emily's signs became a point of contention. The room was filled with neighbors, some supportive of Emily's right to express her views, others siding with Liam's concerns about division and unrest. Liam sat towards the back, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He glanced around the room, noticing familiar faces displaying a range of emotions: confusion, anger, support, and fear. He realized that his single action had ignited a firestorm that was now consuming the very fabric of his peaceful neighborhood. Emily stood at the front, her posture strong yet weary. She took a deep breath before addressing the crowd. "I never intended to cause division," she began, her voice steady. "I believe in the power of dialogue and understanding. My signs are a reflection of my beliefs, just as others have the right to express theirs. We're all here because we care about our community, and that's something we should celebrate, not fear." As Emily spoke, Liam felt a pang of regret. He had acted out of fear and a desire for unity, but in doing so, he had inadvertently sown discord and mistrust. He realized that true unity wasn't about suppressing differing opinions, but about embracing them with respect and open-mindedness. After the meeting, Liam approached Emily hesitantly. I'm sorry, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now that I was wrong. I let my fear get the better of me. Emily looked at him, her expression softening. Thank you, Liam. It takes courage to admit that. We can't let our differences divide us. Let's work together to find common ground. From that day forward, Liam and Emily became unlikely allies, striving to bridge the gap that had once seemed insurmountable. They organized community events that encouraged open dialogue and mutual understanding, slowly healing the wounds that had been inflicted by fear and suspicion. The ripple effect of their reconciliation extended beyond their immediate interactions. Neighbors who had once been divided began to see each other in a new light, fostering a sense of unity built on respect and empathy. The town, once on the brink of fracturing under political tensions, found strength in its diversity. Liam's journey from indignation to understanding serves as a poignant reminder of the power of empathy and the importance of embracing our differences. In a world often polarized by conflicting viewpoints, his story encourages us to seek common ground and to approach each other with kindness and an open heart. What would you do when faced with division in your community? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation on building bridges where there are barriers. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Stay tuned for more stories that explore the complexities of human relationships and the impact of our choices.